Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site, covering that, of course, your Arizona Cardinals. And joining me on another of our 2026 NFL Draft preview shows is Seth Cox, my co-host from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site. We're episode 767. We've gone through quarterbacks. We've gone through running backs. We've gone through receivers and tight ends. This is one of the Cardinals' biggest needs of the draft. We're going to talk offensive tackles. We're going to look at the guys on day one. Who are guys that Cardinals could look at in round one, either at the top of the draft and a trade back up? Who are some day two guys? Who are some day three guys? But this is definitely a position of note because why? Well, Jonah Williams is gone. Calvin Beachum is gone. They have a lot of bodies at right tackle. I don't know if Cardinals fans would feel comfortable or happy if any one of these guys ends up being the answer for 2026, but here's what the right tackle position looks like. They signed Elijah Wilkinson. He started 17 games at right tackle for the Atlanta Falcons and played every single snap. The Cardinals had Elijah Wilkinson. He was not well liked by fans as he was a left guard. He is an option as a starting right tackle. They've got last year's undrafted rookie, Josh Fryer, who could start at right tackle. He started games at left tackle last year. They've got Demontre Jacobs, a guy that they kept around and they protected on the roster. So they see some upside. They've got Christian Jones, their fifth round pick from a couple years ago, who keeps injuring his knee during the preseason. They added Matt Pryor, who's got right tackle experience. They signed Oli Udoh, who was on the Titans. He started at right tackle for the Titans against the Cardinals when the Cardinals lost to the Titans. I wonder if that had anything to do that face-to-face, if anything on the tape suggested that. But we know the Cardinals have Paris Johnson on the left side. And then they've got a ragtag bunch of guys who could play. And like, you could start the season with anything. Like Elijah Wilkinson is a starting level tackle in the NFL. He did it last year. He started on and off. He's been a borderline starter his whole career. He's either in the starting lineup at guard or tackle, or just outside. He's lineman 6 or 7. So on a team, Elijah Wilkinson has been like lineman 4 to 6 on most of his career. So could he do it? Absolutely. I don't think anyone would be excited to have him be the starter, which brings us to the fact that mock drafts, it's starting to pull away, but it probably for about 3 months, every mock draft said Cardinals taking tackle round one, and almost unanimously it's been Francis Mauigoa out of Miami at the number 3 overall pick. And as we look at that, it seems like Mauigoa has gone to be like in mock drafts consensus top 1. Is there a shot that a Spencer Fano could be the first tackle off the board? If we look historically over the last few years, that in round 1, you're always going to have at least 4 tackles since 2019. At least 4 tackles come off the board in round 1. Last year it was 5. It was 8 in 2024. Is there anyone, or would you say that Mauigoa and Fano are both worth the 3rd overall pick, or do they just happen to be the 2 top tackles, or is one better than the other, and the Cardinals happen to be the first team that badly need a tackle, and so 3rd is where it might be?
Yeah, I think the Cardinals need a tackle, so 3rd is where it might be. with Magoa, I really like the guy. I think he's a good player. People don't understand he's not even 21 yet. He'll be
So
21.
that's a big plus. That's DJ Humphries like,
Yeah.
um, he came out, he was barely 20 when he came out now. And he was an immature dude when he came when he ccame out of college, but uh, he ended up having a really nice career. Yeah, after the knee injury, not so great, but yeah. So with Magoa, you do get a lot of upside, don't you? You got a lot of right now and upside where he could be even greater.
Yeah, and the thing with Magoa that I really like that kind of sets him apart from me as the tackle one in this class is the fact that he does have some upside um at the tackle position, but if he doesn't work out, you're not going to feel like it's a huge miss because he looks like a guy that can kick inside and never really miss a beat. With Marigoa, the thing is with him, he's more um, Talisi Fuaga than he is Penei Sewell, and I think that messes with people's heads a little bit, right? Everybody's like, oh, if you can get Penei Sewell, and if Marigoa is that guy, it's like, well, he's not, and that's okay. I mean, Talisi Fuaga has been really a good player for the New Orleans Saints. It's just he's not an all pro at the right tackle position like you get with Penei Sewell, right? So, but that's okay. I mean, I don't think anybody is. I mean, obviously we all want that, but I don't think anybody's like, oh, if you don't get that, you can't take him at 3. My thing is, and I've said this, you and I've had this conversation. We'll talk about this next week. I just, are you forcing a pick at the tackle position because you need a tackle? And again, we've talked about the reality of like you probably need a tackle more than you need an edge rusher, because while you'd listed off all the names, none of them are exciting. And at worst case, that you have Zaven Collins and Baron Browning, right? And then you might have something in Jordan Birch at the edges. So that's what it becomes to me. But I think Malgoa is the lone guy I would take at 3. And the only reason I say that is because with Fano, who I like, who's a good player, I think he is going to be a guard. You look at the size, 6'5.5", that's plenty, but he's 311 pounds, so he's a little light. And then the arms are concerned, barely clipping that 32-inch arm threshold. Really looks like a guy that's going to have to move inside, but he is an excellent run blocker, has done it for a long time at Utah in their run heavy scheme. I think that makes everybody really excited about that fit, right? Because you see that wide zone scheme that LaFleur wants to run. It looks like Fano is going to be kind of a plug and play type of guy there. Is it at right guard, right tackle? Doesn't matter. You don't have either for sure, so you need both for sure type of situation. But I like Fano. I just wouldn't take him at 3. The guy
I've got a question. I've got a question on both those guys. For me personally, and I've said this on a previous show, if you feel that you have a tackle that you want to take 3rd overall, okay. Who does Margoa have left tackle potential? Because I'm not saying that you don't take him because they need a right tackle. They have a left tackle, but say Paris Johnson is hurt. Say Paris Johnson has contract issues. I don't necessarily want to draft a right tackle only. I'm okay if he plays right tackle if he has the ability to be a good left tackle as well. Kind of the perfect example when we're talking Penei Sewell, because he plays right. He might be a left tackle this year, and I think they always had that in mind as well. Is that if you're gonna get a guy at 3, and I know right tackle is important, but if he's a right tackle only, I feel it's a little rich for the position.
I mean, that would be the one hesitation at taking him at 3, and why, when you look at it, you go, okay, this is not. I mean, he's taken some right guard snaps, but overall in his career, he's played right tackle. Doesn't mean he can't, but we saw Jedrick Willis coming out of Bama, and it never really worked out, right? So is that a situation or a risk you want to take coming out?
I mean, if Paris Johnson sticks around and is great and healthy every year, it doesn't really matter, right? Like if Paris ends up being the long-term left tackle and is always out there, you never need to know if your right tackle is that. But for me, I would want at 3 someone who I can plug in at right tackle, but also feel comfortable with him being my left tackle.
And I think that's a fair thing. And so my thing is, if you can trade down, you probably won't get Magoa, but if you get Fano, here's what I like. If you can get Fano at say 10, 12. His athletic humps when you slide him into guard turn to Joe Tooney and Elijah Vera Tucker.
Ooh, that's great.
And so if you can get a guy, and remember, Tooney had to play tackle.
Yes, Tooney played left tackle
In a pinch.
But like he was reliable. He just wasn't great.
So you look at that. But no, again, I wouldn't take him at 3, but if he's there, if you trade back and you can get him, I'm all for it, because then I think Fano's a more sure thing at the guard position than my goal would be at the left tackle position, if that makes sense.
What about the fast rising Monroe Freeling? I get the impression that he's flying up flying up boards. Now, flying up boards, that's just because of the outward facing perception of things. Now, teams generally don't have players suddenly flying up boards because they tend to rank them at the end. Yeah. But Freeling, who has gone in many of my mock draft simulations in round 2, is now suddenly getting top 10 talk because he is more of a true left tackle, right? Is he a guy who you could play at right tackle? And I know the Cardinals did the trade back from 3 just a couple of years ago. I could see it. We believe it is completely a viable option that they could, passing on one of those elite edge rushers that we like at the top of the draft, acquire more picks to move back to get a lineman like a Fano, like a Monroe Freeling. Is he a guy who's worth taking in the top 15?
The thing with Freeling is that you're taking a guy that has more questions, but also more tools. Freeling is a monster. First off, like, we have to acknowledge that 6'7", 315 pounds, almost 35-inch arms, 34 3/4-inch arms. Started at both left and right tackle in his time at Georgia as like a part-time guy, and then was the left tackle this year for the Bulldogs. He has almost 300 career snaps at the right tackle position. But then he's got almost 1,300 career snaps, or he has almost 1,400 career snaps at the left tackle position. I mean, the thing with Freeling is that you're just talking about a guy that hasn't had the wild success as Magoa and Fano. And so you're looking at a guy that is literally just built in the lab to play left tackle or right tackle in the NFL. I mean, you're looking at a guy that you're just like, holy crap, like who got the 3D printer out to print a prototypical like all pro left tackle?
The length, the height, the length of the arms, the athleticism.
The athleticism is ridiculous. And so, that's what it all comes down to, is what you're looking for. In this draft, I think he's a top 15 pick because he is a guy with such impressive physical traits, and he has played well, that you see a guy that you would take over a guy that's had more success in college but looks physically less like he could be as dominant in college, and that's like a Caden Proctor, right? Caden Proctor measured in at 6'7", 352
Giant.
pounds, with just under 34-inch arms. But then you see his numbers and you're like, well, these aren't great. 5'2", 140, 32.5-inch vert, 9'1" broad.
Great for his size.
It's like, bro, for a guy that is 352 pounds,
we will add this Seth's belief about guys that big. You avoid them because they are walking leg and foot injuries to be.
They are
in the NFL.
And Proctor's gonna go in the first round because he has obviously the he's a Bama guy. He's done a great job at Bama for 3 years, starting on the left side. I mean, a 3-year Alabama left tackle not going in the first round would be absurd, right?
Yeah.
But he's going to have to move to the right side in the NFL. He is not as good in pass pro, especially against speed rushers, as guys that we've mentioned before. And he gets away with really bullying people as opposed to being fleet of foot. He's an excellent zone blocker, though, with his size and his ability to get to angles. I just don't know if you can kick him inside because he's so big, right?
He's a giant. And then isn't there the one other guy who's going to probably go round one is Caleb Lomu, which is a local kid, by the way.
Yeah, Caleb Lomu played at Highland High School. He's another guy that could probably go, and there's 2 other guys that we could talk about as potential round 1 guys. That's what's crazy about this class. Lomu came in at 6'6", 313, another guy with good arm length at 33 3/8 inch, so just under 40 or 34, ran a sub 540. But those are the numbers we talk about, right? 32.5-inch vert, 9.5-inch broad. Well, Caden Proctor, 40 pounds heavier, did the same thing. And again, that's not a shot at Lomu. Good player, gonna give you, versatility. Was able to really have success at Utah, across from Spencer Fano the last 2 years, right? 770 snaps last year, 800 in 2025. Only allowed 2 sacks in his career at Utah. He is a guy that just looks the part, and he is a guy that moves so well that you feel really confident that he's going to be good enough to win in run games, especially coming out of Utah. The question becomes, can he add enough weight? Because that's where it's at for him. I mean, I know people will say 313, but he's probably got to put on 15 to 20 pounds of muscle at the next level. And that will allow him to be able to hold up in the NFL a little better on the edge and be able to really finish, which is where he struggles more than anything, because he is a little bit, I know it's crazy to say, but just a little undersized. Under strength is probably the better, wording for the position.
Who are the other guys that could sneak into round 1, or do we want to push the rest of the guys into day 2 potentially?
Yeah, let's go into day 2 with these next 2 guys.
Okay, coming up next on the Rise of Seaward podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web. Let's move to the day 2 guys. Especially the Cardinals have a high round 2 pick. Tackles on day 2. That's coming next on Rise of Seaward. We're back on the Rise of Seaward podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web. We're still talking tackles. We're now moving into day 2. And I know we've talked about, and I think probably the favorite second round tackle. If the Cardinals go round one pass rusher, which is what I personally would like to see, and go tackle round two, Arizona State's own Matt Ihenachor is the guy that is probably right around top of round two, might be end of round one guy, or is there another guy that you would put above him?
No, I mean Hinacor and the next guy are guys you can like it's a coin flip. And to be fair, I think Lomu's in this group as well. Like all three of these guys, like you have four guys that are going to go round one. We mentioned it: Magoa, Proctor, Fano, Freeling, and then from there, the next three, they're like end of round one, start of round two guys. And of course, in that group, obviously we know about the size, 6'6", 321 pounds. He moved well. He does have smaller hands at 9 inches for that, but I think he's okay. Explains why sometimes people are a little worried about his punch because, well, again, he's got smaller hands. But man, he can move well. He is a guy that gives you some versatility depending on what you need, in terms of how he can play. He played mostly on the right side for ASU, but I don't think he'd have any problem with his athleticism kicking inside if needed. I've seen some comps, and one that I like in that, I know it didn't start well in his career, but it seems to have gone fairly well for him, and that's Taylor Moton, the tackle that's been with the Panthers. I mean, 145 games played, 128 starts. That's just absurd. And he went on day two out of Western Michigan, right? Obviously 64th overall is a little further down, but you're talking about a guy that that has been really, really good in the NFL for a long, long time. I don't think that would be a bad pick at the top of that round. The next guy would be Blake Miller, another guy with excellent size, coming out of Clemson, where they've had a lot of success. He played, again, mostly on the right side, but he does have over 100 snaps played on the left side, only allowed 5 sacks in his college career. Miller came in at 6'7", 317 pounds with good athleticism. He's a guy that really kind of checks a lot of boxes from an athleticism and a height standpoint. I didn't mention this, but over 34-inch arms. So a guy that, really kind of, when you look at him, you go, oh, this guy makes a lot of sense. I've seen comps to like Roger Rosengarten. I don't know if you remember him from a couple years ago, went to the Ravens, has had a good start to his career. I think he's got to get stronger, but you can say that for, a bunch of these guys we mentioned with Lomu, probably Monroe Freeling as well. There's very, Fano and Magoa are just, they're kind of naturally strong guys. But you look at Blake Miller, like I said, Miller, Ihenacor, Lomu at that pick in round 2. I don't think anybody would be upset with that, because you'd be getting a guy that you would be getting a guy that you feel really, really confident is going to anchor that right side. The interesting thing is from there, Jess, like there are guys and they're fine. They're not bad, but you almost are going into like round 3, but like day 3 type of guys. I mean, from there, you're talking about Jennings Dunker, right? Everybody's favorite Iowa player. And most people project him to move into guard, which I don't think is a bad thing. Dunker came in. I think they even have him listed as a guard on the NFL.com site. So like even NFL.com's like, yeah, kick into guard, buddy. You're not You're not playing tackle in the pros. But he's the redhead with the glorious mullet out of Iowa.
Yes.
So, obviously immediate fan favorite for everybody. 6'5", 315, just over 33 in charm. So I think that's where everybody kind of has him moving into that guard position. But, he played 3 years. He started 3 years at Iowa. He's 23, played all at right tackles, dealt with some injury issues. So it's not, he's not as clean as some of these other guys we talked about, but he is a really, really good zone blocker and would fit that zone scheme. But again, I'm looking at him, it's like, hey, can you get him at 65? Like, if you get him at 65 and now he's in that potential right tackle, right guard mix, you feel a lot better than if you're taking him at 36 or whatever they pick. 34. 34. And then you look at it from there, you've got a couple. Caleb Tiernan out of Northwestern. He came in at 6'8", 323 pounds. What was wild about him and why he's almost too tall, because he's only got 32 and a quarter inch arms. And so you're talking about a guy that's like a massive, massive outlier from a size point, right? Like 6'8", but like, again, for the average human, not the arm length isn't an issue. For the NFL, he's in the 4th percentile for arm length and 2nd percentile for hand size. Like, you just don't really have a lot of guys that check those boxes. But man, that dude hit a 35.5 inch on the vert at 323 pounds. So he's explosive athletically. He didn't do the runs or the bench, but he's played a lot of snaps at Northwestern, projects to go right in that 3rd round range, but he was a left tackle. I just don't know where he fits in the NFL, and outliers like that, I just don't know. Like, can you have a 6'8" guard? I'm genuinely asking. I don't even know how many guards are 6'8".
I don't think. I know the Cardinals have had 6'5", 6'6" guards, but not. I don't think they've gotten that big. No.
And so that's where I'm just like, I like him. He's a good player. He's shown quite a bit on the tape. I'm not.
He'll end up being a back of the roster tackle, won't he?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's just, again, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying we haven't seen it for
like they won't keep him on. Like, he'll be your tackle 3-4 on a roster pretty much his whole career, unless he shows unless those short arms don't end up being a problem when he plays tackle, because he's technically sound.
Right.
Anyone else on day 2, or are we ready to bump on to day 3?
Yeah, we're on to day 3 and just a couple guys to even know about.
All right. Coming up next on the Rise Up Sierra podcast, the best of Cardinals talk. And let's move on. Let's talk about the day 3 tackles to know for the Cardinals. That's coming up next on Rise Up Sierra. We're back on the Rise Up Sierra podcast, the best of Cardinals talk. And the Cardinals on day 3 could go with a tackle. They did a couple of years ago when they got Christian Jones. We know the Cardinals love day 3 offensive linemen dating back to Steve Keim days. The last 2 years, they took Texas off it. Maybe we should be looking at the Texas offensive line, since they went Christian Jones and Hayden Connor each of the last 2 years on day 3. Are there Texas offensive linemen? Are there Texas tackles to look at on day 3?
There's not, but there's a Texas A&M tackle. Demetrius Krounov, I believe is how you pronounce the name. He came in at 6'7", 319 pounds, but the box that he checks that we know the Cardinals like is arm length, 35 3/8 inch arm, so 88th percentile for arm length. Tested well enough, 50 percentile in terms of 10-yard split. He ran a 5.14 at his size, 71st percentile for the 40. He's a guy that you're going to take in that 100 plus range. He hasn't had enough success in college, but he's a right tackle. He's he's a zone heavy run blocker, which I like. He had really good games this year against Florida and LSU, and I know both schools were down, but I like to see those guys have success in big games for Texas A&M. He's part of the reason that they had so much success this year and were able to play. And then I think everybody's favorite tackle prospect, the guy across from Francis Mauigoa, Markel Bell. Bell is a unique prospect because, again, we rarely see guys this big play the position.
6'9".
6'9". And by the way, 6'9", but he's 345 pounds. So he's less than Caden Proctor, and he's 4 inches taller than Caden Proctor. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes because there's just not very many guys that big. But Bell is, obviously a massive man. He ran a 5.3 640, which everybody's gonna be like, yeah, that's not impressive. But again, at 6'9" and 346 pounds, like the fact that he's moving that well is really impressive. The only real comp that we have to him, and it's unfair. Obviously there's Jonathan Ogden, but like nobody's like, if you're that good, obviously you're going top 1.
Yeah, you're not a day 3 pick.
Yeah, but the only comp we have currently close to him is Trent Brown. Trent Brown went in the 7th round. Trent Brown kicked around until he really found his home right with New England, and then kind of has been up and down his career with injuries. And why, Jess? Why has Trent Brown struggled with injuries so much?
Oh, my guess is how big he is.
Exactly. When you're 6'9", he's 6. Brown is technically 6'8.5", but he's up to like 375. So
you say it every year. Guys that are 340 plus, you're going to want them to lose weight, or you're going to injury red flag them because they won't be able to stay healthy.
Right. And everybody wants to point out the unicorns, right? They're like, oh, well, a guy like Vita Vea, right? And it's like, okay, well, that worked one time.
Also, he's on the defensive side of the ball where they're not every down players.
Right. And by the way, Vita's had dealt with some issues, right? Like
yes,
health issues. So, again, it's just a gamble, and that offensive lineman situation. The athleticism. The crazy thing is he's only played on the left side. So like, are you comfortable moving him across the line? Because we've seen that doesn't always work, and that it can cause issues. So real quick, 2 other guys, Jude Brown out of Boston College, little undersized at 6'5", 314 comparative to the rest of the guys we've talked about, but tested really well. And he's a guy that I would look at like in round 5, 6, kind of the Christian Jones round, where you're like, okay, a guy with these tools, just under 34-inch arms, but 6'5", 314, and with this athleticism, score 34.5-inch vert, 9.7 broad, had success at BC, wasn't the best, but had some success at BC. It's, he's a guy that would potentially, again, we're talking probably round 5 and on, check some boxes. He is mostly on the left side, but you like his tools, you like what you've seen from him. And then Enrique Cruz is another guy out of Kansas, 6'5.5", 313 pounds, just under that 34-inch threshold for the arms, but he showed out pretty well from an athleticism standpoint, and that's why I wanted to bring him up, because he's a mover, man. He's a guy that had a 96th percentile in the broad, 97th percentile in the vertical, and 95th percentile in the 40. When you compare those numbers, you can find some guys late in the draft that really kind of fit what he is as a prospect, and you can make that work, on day 3 for what he has done. He's a guy, again, we're talking day 3, we're talking 5th, 6th, maybe 7th round, not a guy that you're going to take earlier, but a guy that has some tools that are intriguing.
I have one guy that I want to ask about because injury-wise, what about a guy like Isaiah World, tore his ACL in the college football playoff, would be probably day 2-ish, but would he be someone worth looking at day 3, or is he going to go undrafted where they can stash him for a year and then see him compete in 2027?
He checked all the boxes from a measurement standpoint, right? And obviously can't do athletic testing because, as you said, tore his knee 3 months ago. 6'5.5", 323 pounds, over 34-inch arms, and that's going to get him drafted. I really still think he'll get drafted. How early, we'll see. He's a left tackle. He did play a little bit on the right side this year, 14 snaps in his career. Didn't allow very many sacks. Like, this is a guy that has done a good job. My question is, he's graded out better as a gap blocker in the run game than he did in zone. And so that's what my question for him would be, is that because you're at Oregon and that's what they're better at right now? But he is just sloppy right now. Like, the film in the tape is like of a guy that, like you said, has all those tools, but hasn't figured out how to play.
Needs a lot of coaching. Lot of coaching.
And the question becomes, do you trust, a guy in the Cardinals O-line coach to do that? I mean, that's a fair question overall. If you want to know if a guy, in the 5th or 6th round would make sense, because he has the attributes. I just don't know where he fits, but I did like the film in the sense of, like, you can see some good on there.
And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this edition of the Rise of Sierra podcast. It's our tackle show. Best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. We've got more shows coming up in the days to come. We've got the interior offensive line. We've got defensive tackles, edge, linebackers, cornerbacks. We're not going to do one on specialists. Don't worry about that. But we will talk about the rest of the positions. And with that, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms, so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be red, see red, and of course, rise up, see red.